Alright guys, I accidentally stopped the video instead of pausing the video on that last one. But anyhow, we're putting stuff on the chassis. We're going to get the front and the back all assembled and put together. I've got my diff spacers here, and I do run spacers on my diffs. So got a front and a rear here. The rear ones have the square cut out in them. The front ones have a notch out in them for the front bumper. So that's a 2mm spacer and a 1mm spacer. I run a 1mm spacer on the front of the car. So I'll go ahead and pull that back out. And fits onto the bottom of the, there's two notches that stick up, and it fits on there nice and tight, so you don't have to worry about it falling off when you put it on. Alright, I got that on the right way. Alright, we'll fit the dog bone on as we slide everything together. Alright, so we've got two screws for the 2mm. And we're going on the wedge of that. We're going to put a little dab of thread locker in there. We don't want to go too crazy because this is going through a bearing, so if it squishes in there, it'll lock that bearing up. You just want to wet the threads with the thread locker. Don't want it to squish out. And actually, throw a little bag of spacers, a little bag with spacers in there. Not those, yes. Okay, so in this bag also there's two spacers, and they're also showing that they want us to put O-rings on the shaft, so I need to do all that while I got it apart. So I am putting 1mm diff spacer underneath this thing, so I need a 1mm shim between the bearing and this top plate here. So that's going to go down in there. I'll cut this off because I need to put that rubber O-ring inside here. Alright, so they send some rubber O-rings out. It's pretty much the same ones that go inside the diffs. They'll go inside the cups on the center diff. That's going to help with chatter from your dog bones, and it also helps cushion if you take a hard wreck. It'll help cushion that dog bone from getting shoved into your center diff. Alright, so we're going to put those in there, going to line them back up. Dog bone lined up. Work everything together like so. The screw's already got thread locker on it, so we're going to go down and in. Same thing with the back, the other side, not the back one. That's it, just a little bit of thread locker, not enough to squish. Just barely some on the threads. And these, you can, once you snug them down, you can tighten them up. Okay. Once you do that, you can flip it over. And then we've got our plate here. So looks like our plate is going to go with a long sharp point towards the back, like so. And we've also got our bumper. Our bumper is going to slide between the diff and the chassis like so. And if you put your spacer on the right way, it should slide right in. If you go to put it in and it stops, then you know you messed up. Alright, so we've got 2 longer screws and 2 shorter screws for here. When you put this plate on, again, you got your cutout, looks like a sharp edge, points towards the middle of the chassis, and then these holes are countersunk a little bit. So the 2 shorter screws are going to go in the rear 2 holes towards the middle of the chassis, and they're going into plastic, so you don't need thread lock. And then the longer screws are going to go into the front holes. And the reason why you got longer screws in the front holes is because these screws go through the bulkhead and into the front cover for your diff. So if you ever go in, when you go in and rebuild your diffs, you need to take these front 2 screws out to get that front cover off. Or you'll be there all day trying to get that front cover off, prying on it. Why won't this thing come off? It's because you didn't take the front screws out. So you'll take these, to remove that front cover, you take these 2 screws out, slide the bumper off, you take 2 screws out, undo your roll bars, your sway bars, and that front cover pops right on out of there. Nothing to it. They call that quick change diffs. Now when we put the rear assembly in here, we're going to be using a 2mm spacer. And the purpose that I do that is to line up the rear dog bone a little bit better. The output, or I should say the input on the rear end is a little low for the center diff, in my opinion. Probably no problem to it at all, but in my head I like it to be as straight as possible. And I've also noticed since I started using the spacer and brought my diff up a little bit, it allows the belly of the car to ride a little bit lower, so it lowers your center of gravity on your car, so your battery, ESC, and motor weight's down lower. This helps a lot for cornering. Alright, so now that's on there. So that is your front end. So now we are going to install the rear end. So got my rear end here. Got my skid plate. I got my little baby dog bone. And I got my rear spacer. Again, that's the one with the square cut out in the front. So we're going to flip this diff up. And it's going to fit down on 2 pins in the square on the front. And because it's a 2mm, remember when we put these in here and I said put them at the bottom of the slot, this is the reason why. It fits on that spacer. And we're going to stick that damn O-ring in there while I'm thinking about it. Way I don't put it all together and pull it apart and then put it all together again. Alright, we're going to put the rear bone in the hole. We'll fit the back end on there as good as we can. We don't have no screws holding it on the top, so we got to kind of have to do a little song and dance here. Line everything up. Put this cover on. Make sure that your countersinks are facing the right way. And on the rear one, the long screws are going to go in the back. So they screw into the diff cover. And then the short ones go in the front. On the right size here. Well, I'm not tightening them all the way up yet. I want to get them all started, and then once I get them started on those plastic holes, because you're making threads. Got one screw down in there pretty good, so I'm just going to support the rear end and get these screws running. Starting to look like an RC car. We just don't want it to be upside down like this. We want it to be the other way up. Only temporary. Tell you what, you run all these screws in by hand, you have muscles of steel in your forearms. Especially running these big screws into plastic, they like to work you out. There we go. All right. So, oh, that's so smooth. Look at that. Just flick of the finger and everything rotates. Even with that sitting on top of something. So, at this point in your build, this is what you should be checking when you're doing this. So, if you put your diffs in backwards, it's going to be a problem. I don't really think you can put the diffs in backwards because, like, even the covers kind of show you where the gear is supposed to be at. But rotate your center diff, and all your out drives should be turning the same direction when you spin your center gear. If it don't, you messed up somewhere. Alright, so next on our agenda, we're going to do our steering rods. So, chassis is going to go out to the side. I think I already got that bag pulled out. Yes, I do. So we're going to make our steering rods, and then we're going to mount them up. remember correctly, we said that the little mark on the camber rods are going to be on the left side of the car. So we're going to do the same thing with these. We're going to put the marks on the left side of the car. It's going to be the right from you, but it's the left for me. So we're going to have an angle and a flat. And we're going to have an angle and a flat, like so, with both of the notches on the same side. So, see if we can get these started without any tools right off the rip. Yes. So both the ones on the right are going to be reverse thread. Both the ones on the left are going to be straight thread. Or righty-tighty thread, however you want to call it. Okay, got them started. Alright, so now I need to measure. Let me pause. My measuring tool is in my car. Alright, there we go. So they want 40.5 millimeters, so make sure this goes all the way down, turn it on. Go 40.53, that's pretty darn close. Do it like we did the camber rods. I'm going to come in, try to get it as centered as possible. Oh, so they're wanting the edges right to the first thread. Okay, that's easy. We'll have to mark it. Get that back down to 40.5. .51. That's even better than last time. Alright, so we'll get our virtual wrench and our camber wrench. We're going to run it right up to the edge of the first thread. Run that in. These are smaller than the other ones, and then my wrench wants to go in the hole. So, if that's the case, this is what we're going to do. We're going to put that in there, and we're going to run it in. Just be careful, don't damage the hole if you do it this way. Alright, we should have one thread showing right there. Down. One thread showing, and we're going to be flat and flat, like so. Same thing with these. Like that. You'll notice that both sides I'm rotating towards me. That's because that's the direction of the threads when you tighten it up. One side's righty-tighty, the other side's lefty-loosey, and with the way it is, pulling them towards me on both sides tightens them up. Alright, we're just about there. Let me one more turn and then we'll line them up. Alright, so we got both sides to the left. We got our steering knuckle side and our Ackerman side. So that should be pretty darn close to 40.5. Yes, within a ½ millimeter it looks like on both of them. Both of them are the same looseness, so it's going to be the same. Alright, so we're going to come on down. Alright, now we're going to start putting stuff together. Now there's adjustability on all this stuff too, so I'm going to do it by the book, except for I think it's going to tell me to go into the front hole in the Ackerman arm, possibly. No, it's actually telling me to go to the rear. That's where I'm running at. That's how I like it. Okay, so we're going to take the car. Probably actually put it on a stand at this point, but we're going to come in and we've got our offset washers here. In the book it says note the direction, so we're going to put these in the slotted hole on our Ackerman arms. And we're going to have it with the Pac-Man facing out. Like so. No, you can't see that on the camera. Like that. Pac-Man's on this side facing out. So it's got a little sleeve that fits down inside. That's a oval opening, and the little sleeve kind of aims the screw to a certain position inside there. And if you find that you need to tighten that distance up, that's an adjustment. You pull this out, flip it around the other way, and then put the screw in, and it puts it, I think it's 2 millimeters in. Alright, so let's go ahead and start putting these balls on. Oh, that's what I should have done in that last step. Let's go back to the last step. Yeah. So with it on the left, let's look at that. Okay, yeah. So left, want this. With the tall part underneath. And then this side, also with the tall part underneath. Get the whole line up so it'll pop in there. Alright, so it's like so. And this side's going to be the same way. The tall part of the ball is going to be underneath. And here, tall part of the ball is going to go underneath. Just like so. Alright, so now we're going to take, we're going to run a screw. Let me see here, what spacers are we wanting on here? We got 4 short bushings and 2 tall bushings. So it's wanting Looks like it's got us some short bushing, tall bushing on top on the inside, and then it's going to be shorts on the outside. So I'll take this. I'm going to put the bushing on the screw. Underneath. It's going to go through the Pac-Man facing out. And then we're going to have our long part of our ball kick towards the back of the car because it's going in. You know what? That's supposed to be... Yeah, I used the wrong screw for that. That's using a countersunk screw and countersunk washer. Alright, now that makes sense. Didn't realize we had those over there. Right now lined up. Last time I did this, shocks were on the car, and it made it so much more difficult. I was just able to lift up on that arm so easy. Alright, so we're going to have steering arm where it's going to be parallel to the camber rod and then swoop back inside the wheel. So they want a washer on there. No spacer there. Then we're going to put a nut on top. That's going to be a 2. That's going to be a 5.5 on top. Alright, that is a nylock nut, so you don't have to worry about it too much. Alright, now, inside is going to be a button head. It's 38. Yeah, so inside is going to be a button head, and it's going to go up through, and then it's going to have a thick washer on top, thick spacer on top. And that's going to go through the rear Ackerman plate hole, like so, and then it'll have a nut on top. It's like so. Same thing as with the outside of the arm. We're going to be .2 millimeter and then a 5.5 to tighten it up. Spin the car around. We're going to do the same thing with the other side. We're going to be countersink, Pac-Man to the outside. through the hole there. Thick part with the arm swooping back, like so. We got a nut. It's going to be a 2mm with a 5.5 nut. And tighten her up. Other side. It's going to be a small washer through the ball, thick washer. Swing the steering the other direction, then it's going to be rear hole and nut. And I think I'm going to change something here too. I just found something I don't like. Alright, just tighten that up. Alright, so the issue I'm finding here is I put them little spacers in here, and now my steering rack is sliding up and down. That's not going to do you any good in a race when your Ackerman angle is changing when it's shifting up and down. So I'd say that's a good catch. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the screws out on the bell crank, loosen the screws up. I'm not going to take them all the way out, and then mount it to the tower, and I'm going to knock these darn little spacers out. Put my screws back in. The thread lock's still nice and moist, so shouldn't have to worry about that. So apparently that 1mm spacers for that 1mm that I went up on the front tower wasn't good. Oh no, my math didn't math that time, I guess. Make sure nothing's binding up. Alright, tighten up these front ones. These are the two there on the front of that steering top plate. Alright. Nice and free, nice and free. One of my hubs is a little tighter than floppy, but once it works in a little bit, it'll be great. It's pretty darn loose. It's the loosest one I've built so far. Always end up with one hub that's a little tight. Alright, so now we're going to make a center support. It's going to be the front center support. It's going to be in this bag here. It's going to be this big old bar right there. Screws in it. That's got balls in it. Alright, so this stuff gets put together with long grub screws. These big long suckers here. So if I'm not mistaken, those are 2mm. Yep, 2mm. It's like so. And we're going to take these bad boys here. And we're going to run them into the plastic like so. And we run them into the plastic like this instead of the other way around because they, if you ever go in to change the stuff out, it's going to unthread out of the aluminum easier than it is the plastic. So then once you unscrew it, you can use your wrenches just to unscrew the plastic ends if you need to, or change the balls out on it if you need to. So we're going to run that in until it gets snug in there, meaning it hit bottom. Don't over tighten it because it will drive it right through that plastic end. And when we do the one for the back, it's screwing end to end. There's no rod there, so it's gonna kind of all go together. Alright, so we got that and that. These will not come unscrewed, so, and the threads are not reverse thread on one, so you're not going to have to worry about your front support bar unscrewing itself, because no matter which way it turns, it's tightening up one or the other, so you don't really have to sweat that a whole lot. Alright, so we got our rod ends. Let's go ahead and put a through ball on one side. And then we're going to put a threaded ball on the other side. Like so. And then they want a single spacer on either side. And these don't have to be super tight, just snug them up. Making them super tight, it's not going to do anything. Like I said, if it turns one way, it's going to tighten. If it turns the other way, it's going to tighten. And when you go to put this in the car, you're going to have to rotate it a little bit anyhow, probably, because it didn't thread into the plastic to where it's exactly perfect, see? So it's going to be just a little bit of a turn to find that happy spot. So then the rear brace, like I said, we're going to take grub screw. It's going to screw right into one piece of plastic. See if we can get it square in there. There it goes. Hold that like so. Turn it until it stops. Until you feel like it should stop. And we'll put a shim on there. We're going to tighten the other side on there. So basically I'm just using 2 hex wrenches to spin one side and then tighten them both up. And then the holes should be aligned on this one when it tightens up, or when you get it tightened up. See if I can get one more turn out of that. Yep. Alright, so that's going to look like so. Holes are lined up. And then this one's probably going to have through balls on both sides, I think. Yeah, a long through ball and a short through ball. Long through ball. You got your little, it looks almost like a bead. That one pops in there. So it'll look like this. A long one and a short one. So we're going to put down on the instructions. We're going to put our front rod in. That's telling you upside down. This right here, the square part, is supposed to go up against the bottom See a square part there? It's supposed to go underneath, and then the screw comes in through the top. That's showing you that it goes in there with the round part up, which that's not going to give you much support in an accident. That's going to give you a little bit more help. So I will send a message to JQ to let him know about that, or a message on the Discord about it. And we're not using a screw long enough to have a nut on it. So we're going to want to thread lock this because it's going to be into a metal ball. That's going to go underneath there. Okay. Line it up. Thread lock will lubricate that thing a little bit so it kind of goes in fairly easy, and then it hardens up later. So then we're going to tighten the shit out of that. And we've got our long ball here. And I think I'm going to have to add a shim to that. That is not quite where it needs to be. I didn't see that on the other page where they wanted 2 shims on one. Let me look. Yeah, actually they're showing 2 shims right there. They're not showing any there. But here you can see there's 2 shims. Looks like 2 shims on the back. Let me add another shim here. At least 20-25 cars are brand new out here, so he's probably just going to have to iron in the instruction book on it, which is expected. I mean, nothing's perfect on the first go around. Alright, then I should have a long screw and a nut. That screw should be long enough to go through, yep. So starting from the not motor side, going from this side here, you're going to push the screw through the ball and push it just where the threads are about to come out the other side. And then you're going to take a nut, and I take a pair of needle nose pliers, just barely grab the end of the nut, and then take your nut driver or your hex driver and get her all started. Yep, it's in there. Alright, and you could use your needle nose pliers just to hold it while you tighten up. Not going to be able to get a hex in there, a nut driver to be able to hold it, and then tighten her up pretty good. So you want it tight to where this aluminum kind of squeezes on that outsides of that ball, so the ball doesn't move around. So the only thing that should move is your shaft should move on the balls, but your ball shouldn't move on the metal screw. Alright, and so on the back one here, we've got a aluminum plate here. It's going to slide over the rear diff like so, and then we've got a barrel head screw, which is a 2.5 millimeter. You're going to put it in the side that the thicker openings in. See, it's got threads in it. This side don't. That's the side that the screw's going to go in. You put it in there, and then you got to find the hole in there. Once you do that, you can use your 2.5 and run it in there. It's almost a big enough hole in the plastic where you just push the screw through, but it just kind of, probably could if you were stronger than me, but just tight enough to where I can, I've got to twist it in there. There's not even any force to do it. It's almost all the way through now. Then once it gets to the other side, it'll find the threads. If the hole lines up. Push that back just a little bit. There you go, can't see it on my lap, but push that brace over just a little bit and the screw hole lined up. Yep. Okay, I just had to push back right here just a hair while I was screwing on this, and I heard it go pop and found the hole. Everything fits nice and tight on here. And this, you're going to tighten up pretty good. Alright. And then we've got our crossbar. The side with the short ball is going to go to the back in this little slot here. And the part with the long ball is going to go to the center like that. So, this one, this barrelhead screw here is going to get a little bit of thread locker on it. It's going to go in from the same side that the other one went in. Find a hole in the ball. Run that bad boy in there. Like so. Snug her down. Alright, then we've got another longer screw here. I'm going to put that through that ball, not the other side. Got our nylock nut, it's going to go on the other side. We might actually be able to get our hex driver on there. Let's see. 5.5, yes. And we're going to do the same thing that we did with the front one. We're going to tighten it up to squeeze that aluminum where this has no lateral movement at all. The balls just move around a little bit, but nothing moves. Everything's tight. Alright, so now we got our braces put together. What's next? Oh, that's telling us how to mount them up there. So I don't know why, but it's still showing here, it's showing that square piece on the bottom. The only thing I can think of, the square piece is going to keep the ball from popping off the bottom, but I don't see where you're getting any support on the top. So I'm going to leave mine how it is. If I ever have a problem with it popping off, I've got a way to take care of it. Alright, now we're going to do our servo mount. So we got those little red spacers in there. Let me get them out before they end up in the way. Alright. So, this is our servo mount. It's got 3 legs to it. They're all the same. So if you look at the bottom of it, there's notches cut out. So the servo leg can fit right inside there. and then the screw goes in. Slots in like that, and then the screw goes in. So let me get my 1, 2, should be one more screw over here somewhere, I think. Should be, yes, it's under the back of the car. Alright, so every single part of this is going to get thread locked. It's all metal to metal fittings. And if you're running a servo that you don't want, that you can't get in there with the servo mount already in place, you could pull this whole thing out. You take the legs off of it. You do whatever you need to do to be able to comfortably mount your servo and route your wires. And then you can take this whole mount with the servo in it, set it right back down into the car, and run your 3 screws up through the bottom. Just make sure you thread lock it. That servo does a whole lot of moving and jerking while it's inside that car. You'd be surprised when you're driving how much movement that thing does. Especially on our off-road tracks. That thing's a juke and jive. Especially if you're pulling fat whips and trying to land it with the steering turned, it's really going to jar it. Alright, so there's your servo mount. And then it's going to go in here. Get it on camera. It's going to go right here. 3 holes, 3 screws. So, it's going to be a 2.5. Alright guys, when we get to the point, still got to do shocks and everything tonight, but when we get to the point, I'm not going to mount any of my electronics up on camera. I did that on my last build, so if y'all need to see how to solder stuff and mount all that stuff up, y'all can refer back to my other Mayako video. It's going to be exactly the same thing. You'll notice you're looking at the right one because all the skirts are yellow and the bumper's yellow on that car. So I'm going with a dark theme on this one. This one's going to have a mostly black paint job to it. I'm going to use this one to race the day races, and my 24 car with all the fluorescent yellow stuff on it, that's going to be my night racing cars for the weeknight races at Extreme, RC, and Ladson. And this will be my day run car. This one will go to all the day races until I get the next update. Alright, so what else is it wanting us to do? Mount the servo, I'm not going to do that on camera. Servo horn. Mount the motor. Yeah, so I'm not going to do it on camera, but I'm going to show y'all what to do. Let me find my motor mount. It's probably in the bag. It's in a box. Yeah. So I'll go ahead and do the upper battery mount and all that stuff too. Upper battery plate. Them shitty little plastic servo horns they send you. They send you a pinion gear, and it is a 15 tooth. So if you need anything bigger than that, that's a mod 1 15. If you want a 16 or a 17, you'll have to go buy one. Alright, so motor mount, basically find the hole sizes that match the front of your motor, screw it down, You'll slide this in, mesh your gears, or put your pinion on, mesh your gears, get your grub screw facing the notch that's cut out over here with your driver on it, and then line them up, tighten your gear up, put your screws here, set your gear mesh, tighten them up, and then that's mounted. So there's really nothing to that. Most cars use these nowadays. So yeah, let's do the upper battery tray bracket, a battery bracket, so you'll see how that goes. Oh, they changed screws a little bit. Cool. Cool. Smaller screws going into it now. Sweet. Okay. That should be a 2mm. Alright, so we got our funny looking screws here. It's basically a big and a small grub screw with a washer mounted in the middle of it, looks like. So we're going to put thread locker on the small threads. Not on the big threads, only on the small threads. We're going to run that down in there. And we're going to tighten it up pretty good. We got one that's going to go to the other side also. Ooh, got a lot on that. Alright, we'll run it in. Tighten her up. Don't need to get too crazy. Alright, so that goes on there. So then you've got your upper mount. So I run a pin battery with the leads in the back here. So when I put my battery cover on, I put it on with the slot towards the back, because this has the longer, thinner area to where my battery leads stick up on either side of it. And like I said, this will have foam on the bottom of it, and there'll be foam on the tray underneath. So I'm kind of sandwiching my wires with the foam in here, and then the battery sits on the foam on the bottom, so it kind of squishes in like a soft sandwich. And then we got our, I'm not going to tighten them up, but I'm going to get them started on here so you can see. We got a nut here and a nut here. Like I said, you put the battery in here, make sure you put some cushion at least on the bottom of it. I put it on the top and the bottom because it got wires going underneath it also. And then this just gets tightened down. Whenever you swap your batteries out, you got to take these nuts off. You don't have to take both off. What I do is I take this one off, leave this one on, I just loosen it halfway, and then I can lift this. I'll show you. So if I take this nut off, I can lift this up and swing it out the way, and then I can grab my battery out. You can also swing it this way, grab the battery out, slide the battery in, swing this back around, put it into place, put your nuts on, tighten them both up, and you'll feel all the foam squish it together, and it's good to go. Alright, let's see, is there anything else that we need to do? That's just showing you how the motor mount goes on with those two screws. Yeah, make sure you put thread lock on those. Mount the ESC. It says use double-sided tape. Double-sided tape works most of the time. I find it to be untrustworthy though. That's why I use E6000. There's our battery mount. It says add foam as necessary for shorter battery packs, which means this way, the height. So we'll put foam in the bottom. I've got some foam tape. I'll put 2 layers on the bottom, and then I'll add layers underneath the cap as needed to fill in the space. So that's pretty much everything, guys. for the car build. I'm going to go ahead and stop this video. I'm going to get everything moved out of the way. I'm going to get everything prepped up, and we're going to do some shocks because I got something to show y'all on some shocks. Y'all going to have fun with this. So see me in the next video for the next gen stuff.